Welcome back to the Spookyverse, everyone. My name is Miner, and today we're going to be going through the evolution of Jason Voorhees. We have 10 different films we got to go through today. We will be excluding Part 1's Kid Jason as well as Roy from the 5th film. However, I do want to leave Roy as an honorable mention because I love his design. And at the end of the video, guys, I'm going to give you a mini ranking of which one's the best and which one's the worst. Like I said, we have 10 films to go through. Kiki, Mama, let's just jump directly into the first one, Part 2. So in 1981, Friday the 13th Part 2 was released and introduced us to a grown-up Jason. This version of Jason is also known as Baghead Jason, due to the fact that he wears a bag on his head. Portrayed by Wharton Gillette, this version of Jason is 6 feet 1 inch. And he wears a plaid shirt, overalls, and a one-eyed sack on his head. This bag is secured around his head with a rope and has a singular hole in it which allows him to see. Underneath the mask, his face appears lumpy. He has patchy red hair and a beard. His face was clearly inspired off of creatures like Quasimodo and the Elephant Man. Something I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the fact that on the right side of his face, he's actually missing his ear. You can mostly tell that with the jump scare that we are going to flash up on the screen real quick. If you look very closely, he is clearly missing his ear. And then it's just somehow there in Part 3. If the creators of the films are watching this video, can you please explain to us in the comments how that's freaking possible? Part 3, aka Friday the 13th 3D, was released in 1982 and gave Jason his iconic hockey mask. In this film, he is portrayed by Richard Booker. He is about 6 feet 3 inches and is a lot bulkier than he was in Part 2. He trades in the long hair for a shaven look and swaps his clothes out for dark pants and a green dress shirt. Something else I've noticed is that he kind of has a bit of a hunchback. Honestly, I feel like that would have worked out for Part 2's Jason. And the last thing we're going to talk about for this one, the makeup. From my knowledge, there were 3 different types of makeup used for this Jason. We'll see if we can throw all 3 up on the screen. Honestly, all 3 I feel like could have worked for Jason, in my opinion. This makeup right here was the first one that they've ever worked on, and it was used for the scenes where he was shrouded in darkness and even scenes where he was wearing the mask. It was even used for the alternate ending where Jason decapitates our final girl, whose name I can never freaking remember. Hey Siri, what was the name of the final girl in Friday the 13th Part 3? Chris. Alright, so at the end of Part 3, using this makeup, they originally planned for Jason to decapitate Chris. Apparently they must have thought this went too far because they also originally planned for Jason to have forced himself upon Chris. And honestly, I am so glad that they cut that part out because if they haven't, this would not be my favorite franchise. The second makeup is the one that I like to call the flashback makeup. The reason why I call it that is because halfway through the film, Chris reveals that she came back to Crystal Lake because of the fact that she was harassed by a masked murderer, and they used this makeup for that flashback. And the final makeup they ended up using in the film is, well, the final makeup. Now honestly, this one is the best makeup because it more fits the continuity of Part 1's Jason. And yes, I am fully aware of the fact that I said we're not going to be including that Jason, but, you know, still felt like it's important to mention. Alright, 1984, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, aka Friday the 13th Part 4. This version of Jason is slightly less bulky than Part 3's Jason and is missing the hunchback altogether. His clothes have relatively more wear and tear. The triangles on his cheeks are ripped off completely. He's missing half of the triangle on his brow, and his face is a lot more deformed than it was in part 3. Honestly, I feel like this is the Jason we all think about when we think Jason Voorhees. Or that really awesome Jason from the Mortal Kombat games. Speaking of the games, I want to give a quick little honorable mention to Jason from the Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle, as well as the Friday the 13th official video game. I love both of these. Frankly, I love the Killer Puzzle a lot more. I don't really know why, I just love it more. Too bad it got deleted for copyright reasons. Now back to Final Chapter Jason. Honestly, I still feel like this is the Jason we all think about. At the end of the film, he got his mask sliced off completely. I'm not going to talk about how much more iconic that is than part 3, because I've talked about it so much on this channel, you guys pretty much get the point. However, what I will say is that at the end of the film, he got like sliced, like his hand almost fully in half. Here's a quick little clip of that. Also at the end of the film, he got sliced on the side of the head with his own machete. Also, something I forgot to mention on the part 3 one, he got hit on the forehead with the axe. After part 5's Jason disappointed so many fans, part 6 was released not long after. Despite not doing so well at the box office, this became a fan favorite film for critics and fans and everyone. And even brought back Tommy Jarvis from both part 4 and part 5. This is definitely Tommy Jarvis's best appearance in the Friday the 13th franchise. Honestly, I really hope they bring him back for another film. I'm pretty sure they did bring him as well as his actor back in Never Hike Alone. I can never remember. At this point, Jason is a zombie and wears similar attire to himself in part 4, but with additional items such as a tool belt, gloves, as well as even a new mask. Now this, me personally, I don't have an issue with, but a lot of people have an issue with this. The straps on the mask have like a brown leather tint to them. A lot of fans really preferred when the straps had a black leather tint to them rather than the brown. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me, but I just thought I'd point that out. And something else that a lot of fans give this Jason a lot of crap about is the fact that the triangles or lines or chevrons, whatever you want to call them, on the cheeks are missing, but it only has the one on the brow. I actually think this actually makes this Jason actually look cooler. And before we move on to the next one, I just want to mention that this Jason right here has actually been given the fan name Super Jason. Honestly, I love that. I love that name. Alright, New Blood, Part 7, 1988. This is where Jason started to go by the name Zombie Jason. As most of you who saw my ranking for all the Jason films, link will be in the iCard, you know that this is my favorite Jason. I just love this guy. He's awesome. And the reason why I say he's the best one is because of the fact that the director actually cares about continuity. He didn't want to be like, just throw a mask on him and call it a day. No, he actually cares. This version of Jason has like rotting features all over his face, as well as like he's like missing his nose completely. His eye is like non-existent. He's got like the axe mark from part 3, the machete slice from part 4, as well as the time in part 6 when he got hit in the face with a speedboat propeller. My only issue with this is the fact that he doesn't have a bullet wound on his mask from part 6's gunshot wound to the forehead, but yet underneath the mask he actually does have a wound there. It's not much of an issue, but yeah, just thought I'd point that out. Also, something else that some people, similar to the last one, this one's straps are actually black instead of brown. My only issue with that, like I said, I don't really care about what color the straps are, but my only issue with that is continuity. Like, if they were brown in the last one, you'd expect them to be brown in this one. Like, I guess they could have gotten discolored from water damage. Speaking of water damage, this version of Jason actually has like his spine as well as his shoulder blades and everything back there exposed. And like, I love this version of Jason. He looks disgusting. Also, towards the end of the film, he gets like his mask broken. Honestly, in my opinion, that should have been the end of the mask in general. This Jason is prime Jason. No other Jason after this film should have worn that mask. Alright, so in 1987, they released probably the worst Friday the 13th film ever created. I'm talking Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. The kills are boring, the characters are forgettable, Jason's face looks like a freaking rotting jack-o'-lantern. Aside from that, Jason's look in this film is actually not bad. I like the fact that his shirt is like somewhat tucked in. Thank you, Jason. We all knew deep down you were a gentleman. My only issue with that is that in Part 7, his clothes were like torn and ripped. And here they are back to looking like he just put them on. And like I mentioned earlier, guys, he looks like a rotting jack-o'-lantern underneath that mask. But something else I do like about this film is the fact that he always looks wet. Whether he's been on land for a few hours or he just walked out of the water. Apparently the reason why they did that is because every time before they start shooting, they would douse Kane Hodder in slime. And by the way, I forgot to mention, in Part 7, Kane Hodder took the mantle as Jason. Honestly, he's probably the best person to play as Jason. But still, this is definitely the worst Friday the 13th film. In fact, editor, remember that time when I wrote down Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and then threw it in the garbage? Insert a clip of that right here. This film is a piece of trash. You know what? I need a piece of paper. Jason Takes Manhattan. Look at that, guys. I wrote down the name of the movie. My handwriting is not really the best. But you know what I'm going to do? Come here, guys. See that trash can right there? You see that trash can right there? Yeah, that's where you go, Jason Takes Manhattan. Alright, now we're starting to get into the more modern films. We have Jason Goes to Hell, released in 1993. I sometimes like to call this Hell Jason. I don't really know why. I believe the most common name people are calling him is Deadite Jason. Like I said in my rankings for Jason, if you guys want me to do a full video dedicated to Evil Dead, let me know. I really like this look. Like, I like the overall puffy look. I like the fact that his mask is like embedded to his face. This actually was not produced by the original creators of Friday the 13th. That's why it doesn't go by Friday the 13th. That's also one of the reasons why this one has like the speedboat thing, the speedboat crack on his mask, where Part 8 doesn't. A lot of people say that this design was based off of like the toxic waste thing that happened in Part 8. Honestly, I'm inclined to believe that. You guys can let me know in the comments what you think. This mask has like a chrome texture to it. That could just be lighting. I'm not so sure. Within the first like few minutes of the film, Jason gets blown up and was presumed dead by everybody in the film. But his soul would then later go on to possess multiple people through his heart, which would then morph into a really ugly creature called a Hell Baby. At the end of the film, he would then be resurrected, but then he got stabbed in the heart by, I think, his great niece. I can never remember. After doing this, he gets pulled down into hell by a bunch of weird demon arms, as well as Freddy Krueger. Because, I mean, you gotta have Freddy Krueger. I mean, this film and The Nightmare on Elm Street were produced by the same people. Something else I want to mention is that he has like that hair that we usually don't want to see on Jason, but it actually looks good here. I like this. Good job. Alright, now we're moving on to Jason X. Released back in 2001, this film the beginning at least, takes place in 2010. Which honestly makes no freaking sense, but I digress. Now this version of Jason has like a much more angular mask compared to how the masks were before. And his skin appears more human. Now that could be chalked up to them making up this like thing of him being able to regrow lost and damaged tissue, and he could be turning back into a human, but I don't know if I like that. Something else I want to mention real quick, in Jason Goes to Hell, they actually put like the dead eye on like the wrong side, but in Jason X they ended up fixing that. Kudos to them for that, by the way. He would then be cryogenically frozen and then released on a spaceship 400 years later. And after being brutalized by this really gorgeous robot,
what?
He would then later be rebuilt as a cyborg using nanotechnology. And this is when the film introduced us to Uber Jason. Honestly, I really love Uber Jason, and it's awesome despite how terrible the film was. Something that doesn't make sense to me though is the fact that nanotech was needed to rebuild Jason, but they literally introduced at the beginning of the film that he could just regrow lost and damaged tissue. That make what? Also, something else I want to mention, at the very beginning of the film, we can see Jason with like patchy gray hair. Now you can mostly see that with the scene where the guy puts the blanket over Jason's head. I don't know if I like that. Let's just move on to Freddy vs. Jason. Alright, in 2003, Freddy vs. Jason was released. Now, I'm pretty sure that this film is a prequel to Jason X. I could be wrong. I don't like this version of Jason, honestly. I think it's terrible. First off, his overall ensemble is like, it's very disproportionate. That's not me throwing shade at Ken Kirzinger as Jason. In fact, I actually have respect for all the different actors who played as Jason. It's just that this is a huge Jason. Like, he's like 6'5", and his head is like way too small, and the mask is freaking huge on his head. And as for what we see like underneath the mask, we don't even see much of his face underneath the mask, similar to Jason X. And what we did see in that film, literally it just looks like they just stuck his head inside of a microwave. However, for this one, I was able to find a face on the internet, and honestly, ugh. Like, I know he's meant to be ugly, but this is a bit much. And also, one of his eyes is like very droopy and like sad. Dude, can you like put your mask back on, please? Thank you. Alright, now this next one, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated films in the entire franchise. We have the 2009 remake. Now this is a great film. I loved it. Now this version of Jason is portrayed by Derek Mears and is roughly 6 feet 5 inches. I honestly think that Baghead Jason is a lot more fitting for, you know, his overall ensemble because it covers up his neck, unlike the hockey mask, which just... What? Seriously, bro, that mask is way too small for your head. Which I guess kind of makes sense because, like, he just finds it in the film and it's not going to be a perfect fit each time. Another thing that we don't see is, you know, the wear and tear that the mask goes through, which I guess he just found it, so there's not going to be any. He doesn't have any history with it, but still. Aside from that, it's a great film. It is severely underrated. In fact, it's actually probably one of my favorites out there. Alright, let's rank these. At number 10, we have Part 8. I just hate this film, so let's just move on. At number 9, we have Freddy vs. Jason. I love the look of the mask, but the Jason itself is just terrible. At number 8, we have Part 2's Jason, aka Baghead. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's not as eye-catching as the hockey mask was. At number 7, we have Jason X and Uber Jason. I like the design of Uber Jason, but Jason X kind of brings it down. At number 6, we have the remake. Personally, I think I prefer the Baghead version in this movie, or as I like to call him, Ripper Jason. I think this is probably the scariest Jason ever created. At number 5, we have Part 3's Jason. I just love this look, and from this point on, it's going to be films that I don't have much of an issue with. At Part 4, we have Part 6's Jason. Fan favorite film, you gotta put it pretty high. Part 3 is Deadite Jason from Jason Goes to Hell. Such a great Jason, such a great film. I love it. Part 2's Jason is the final chapter's Jason. Honestly, I feel like this is the Jason we all think of whenever we think Jason Voorhees. Last but not least, we have New Blood Part 7's Jason. I love this look. He really shows all the damage he has taken. And that's it. The very first film was released in 1980 and introduced us to Pamela Voorhees, who was the mother of Jason Voorhees, who was the killer in Part 2, which was released in 1981. And with that, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment down below what you guys thought, and of course subscribe for more videos. Also, don't forget to ring the bell to receive notifications so you never miss another upload. But with that, that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, this is Miner signing off for now. I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Golden Family.